questions towards the end of the conversation. So kindly raise your hand on Zoom, or you could put your question in the chat box. Thank you very much for joining. With these words, over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namah. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharini Devi Sheshunyavadi Shakta Deshakarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurav Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarakam Bandhanat Mrityurmukshrimamrita Karpura Gauram Karunavataram Samsara Saram Bhujagendraharam Sada Vasantam Hridaya Ravinde Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami. Welcome everybody on this wonderful auspicious occasion of Mahashivratri.
Prabhuji, it's a little dark. Not able to see you very well.
Yeah, here I'm in a village, so
Okay.
there is, that would be. So it's a Shivaratri, Ratri. The purpose of Lord Shiva, Bhagwan Shivji, is the personification of complete peace, to such an extent that when he would sit in meditation in the mountains of the Himalayas, that is his residence, and seeing his contemplative mood, Narad Muni basically came to Lord Narayan and he explained to him, you know what, Lord Shiva is meditating and you are doing nidra. Of course, it is a yoga nidra. So Narad Muni said, this will not set right example. People might say, Arey, Lord Shiva is doing meditation and Lord Vishnu is lying down. So therefore, you should go and learn meditation from Lord Shiva. So Lord Narayan did not chastise Narad Muni. He did not say, who the hell are you to tell me what I'm supposed to do? Right? So Lord Narayan said, you make a lot of sense. Let me go. And being inspired by Lord Shiva, Lord Narayan became Nara Narayan Rishi and did the contemplation, meditation, dhyan. Now that aspect of Lord Shiva of meditation is not bereft of his power to destroy. His samhara shakti, that is destruction, and his shanti. No? He is able to reconcile between the battle and peace. Right? And the indication is there in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains to Arjuna, Tasmas sarveshu mam anusmara yuddhacha. There is yuddha and there is smaran. Yuddha is one aspect of human existence or the one element of this creation. Yuddha is not the goal. Peace is the goal. But sometimes one achieves peace only through yuddha. And that aspect is most authentically, profoundly represented by Lord Shiva. He is a samhara shakti. You know, his destruction power, it is not that it destroys one city. It does not bomb one place, one country, right? It does not destroy through different kinds of natural disaster few cities. That is also aspect of Lord Shiva only, but not represented properly by people who think we are also doing destruction for the right cause. When Lord Shiva destroys in the form of samhar, pralay, the pralay is unimaginable. The description which is given in the scripture, the concept of pralay, you know, if anybody has the money, some film directors, not the left liberal, we can have a topic called as pralay. From the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the Bhagavatam, the whole concept of pralay, just like Markandeya Rishi experienced the pralay. So imagine Lord Shiva he's a principle of that pralay, but even though he's a principle of pralay, he has such a reflective mood, sitting in the Himalayan mountains, complete in trance. How is it possible? Therefore, the Sanatan Dharma actually helps us to reconcile between peace and war. Sanatan Dharma helps us to reconcile between Smaran and Sangarsh. Sanatan Dharma helps us to reconcile between Rudra and Shiva. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, amongst the Rudra, I am Shiva. Rudra, the word Rudra itself denotes some kind of fierce principle. And Shiva represents complete Mangalmay, auspiciousness. So what does Krishna want to tell us? What does our Shastra are telling us? When there is a constructive destruction, whenever there is a constructive destruction, the constructive destruction becomes the new foundation for a new creation. They are coherent. They are not in conflict with each other. And one of the problem with the modern system is that there is a problem of perception, right? If you see the liberal values, the left ideology talks about peace, that talks about peace, they have a wishful thinking. And for fulfilling their wishful thinking, they try to find faults in the Shastras in so many places. Oh, Krishna was warmonger, Lord Shiva is destructive power, Sanatan Dharma presents so much of destruction. This is how can it be religion? For them, the concept of religion is peace all the time, at all situation, at any cost. They write poetry on peace, but they forget while writing their poetry, they live in a guarded community. A guarded community denotes there is a peace and there is a war. There is a potential intrusion from somebody who wants to destroy us. Therefore, the suraksha, right, the protection principle is born out of war only. And therefore, it is very important to understand, as much as we invoke the auspiciousness aspect of Lord Shiva, the destructive power, we want peace, we want peace, we want peace. At times, it is very important to invoke the Rudra Shakti also. Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was very eager to go beyond war. Arjuna was very eager to go beyond conflict. To such an extent, Arjuna wanted to make peace. Imagine that great Arjuna has the courage and determination to speak. What does he speak? He said, Krishna, if these people attack me with all their weapons upraised, if they come to strike me, still I will not raise. I will not retaliate. I will not attack. Like people say, ताली एक हाथ से बजती नहीं है, दो हाथ से ताली बजती है. हाँ, अगर ताली एक हाथ से बजती नहीं है, right? अगर एक ही हाथ रहेगा, if there is only one hand, they will keep beating you, right? So therefore, they have to raise their hand to stop getting beaten, right? So therefore, what is the principle of life? The principle of life is our goal is peace, but our tool is destruction also. One may question, in Kali Yuga, then you have to kill everybody. Please understand that in regards to your weakness, you need grace of God. But for your conscious demonic nature, you need punishment of God. For personal growth, our limitation has to be seen with great kindness. And that is already presented by Gita, by Lord Shiva also. Willing to forgive the limitation of the living entity. But when that same living entity creates an agenda, right? What is the agenda? Like this Ukraine and Russia war. Very clearly for the Bharatiya Sanskriti, in the political realm, there are no friends. There is no such thing as friendship. They are all circumstantial, situational, agenda-driven friends, which is the reality and which has to be accepted like that. Whether this particular prime minister or particular president are personal friends or not, there is no such thing as a politician making a personal friendship with a country's president. No, it doesn't exist like that. Chanakya Pandit, for your information, he explains the king should have no sentiments in regards to long-lasting friendship, because that very friendship can be used by the enemies to squander and squash your kingdom. So therefore, those who are supporting the liberal American European country against Russia are making the same mistake those who are supporting Russia against the American and Western countries. Tulsi Gabbard, no, she's a spiritualist also. She's an American also. She made a simple observation. What is that observation? One of the most important observation is that her own country, it's her world, her own country, and that to the president of that country, she is speaking that they want war to happen. Why? Because if the war happens, the arm lobby, right, the ammunition lobby can sell unlimited weapons to Ukraine, because the fear psychology will force Ukraine to spend their money in buying weapons instead of providing stability for the citizens. Now, this is the Dushta Shakti. So whether it is a Russian Dushta Shakti, whether it is Indian Dushta Shakti, whether it is American Dushta Shakti, now Dushta Shakti cannot be called as good or based upon which country they represent. That's the greatest mistake one can make. When Krishna spoke in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Very profound. 16th chapter is a description of demonic forces. Does it take anybody's name? No. They are on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna does not take even one name. Hey, here is the Dushasan Rakshas. He defines the characteristics of Rakshasi Pravritti, the demoniac nature. And that demoniac nature absolutely has no heart. This demonic nature absolutely have no sensitivity towards anybody. They can destroy the country if they can make more money. They can destroy millions of people if they can prove their power. These are representation of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. And such people cannot be invoked with Lord Shiva's auspicious energy. You cannot chant Om Namah Shivaya for them. Om Namah Shivaya is the rhythm for Prakriti's Srijana Shakti. यहाँ सृजनता बढ़ती है, it creates. It's a foundation for all the mantras. Right? When you rhythmically chant Om, it is proven from every perspective. It is not a word. It is called as alambana, vibration. When you vibrate the Omkara, it creates a rhythm, it creates a creation which is founded in Sattva Guna. But when that becomes dysfunctional because the demonic forces try to disturb and create conflict, then the rishis, what they did? Vena, everybody knows the story of Vena. A Vena was not mean or person with limitation. A Vena was a person with demonic nature. So they tried to communicate. They did proper fine speech to Vena. But Vena would not listen. So what did this Rishi do? The Rishis all came together collectively and slightly changed the pitch of the Omkar. Instead of chanting Omkar, they chanted Humkar mantra. And because of that Humkar mantra, what happened? Vena was dead instantly. Instantly, Vena was killed and they churned his body. And that Humkara is the representation of Rudra Shakti. And that Omkara is a representation of Shiva Shakti. Omkar will always remain the foundation. Har mantra ke liye. Om Namo Bhagavate, right? Vasudevaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahi Tejasvina Matitamasthuma Vidvishabahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Right? Our mantras are filled with Shanti prayers. Every mantra you chant, every pata you do, they begin with Omkar, they conclude with Omkar and Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. But there are some people who have the name Shanti, but they have no Shantiness in them. They want to create trouble, difficulties, agenda driven. So ऐसे लोगों के प्रति, such people, that could be me also, that could be you also. So what we are supposed to do? We are supposed to invoke Rudra Shakti. Consciously having the courage to pray. And, hey, Lord Shiva, you are the power of destruction, the constructive destruction. We are not taking anybody's name. Whoever is responsible for destroying the peace of the universe, as much as a peace it is supposed to give us, and if somebody is consciously destroying such peace, then what we are supposed to do? We are supposed to actually pray together. Today, during the Shivratri, those who are doing Jagaran, do not only focus for your peace, you also invoke the Rudra Shakti in you and pray consciously like those sages who tried to speak to Vena, would not listen. If everybody come together and create that humkar, then what will happen? It will affect positively for the good people and destroy the demonic forces. All right. Therefore, when anger is not directed, which is everywhere, it doesn't do anything. It only destroys us. Right? When you are blasting crackers in Diwali time, it's an art how to burst crackers, how to release your rocket. If you're releasing the rocket facing at your place, it will come and hit you only. Right? So if you don't know how to use the anger directing towards the right direction, it will come to you only. People express frustration, but not anger. There is a difference between expressing frustration and anger. Uh, Frustration, what does it do? It is defeating. But anger is not defeating. A rightly directed anger has the power to create equipoiseness, and that is what Lord Shiva is representing. ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है. Lord Shiva, the very Lord Shiva who has the power to destroy, that very Lord Shiva also comes and give the Brahmin thread to Sukadeva Goswami. The foundation of Prema Ras, right? The Bhagavatam talks about the Madhurya and Prema Ras. But who is the foundation of that Prema Ras? Who is giving that Prema Ras? Who is initiating Sukadeva Goswami to that Prema Ras? None other than Lord Shiva only. Therefore, those who speak only of prema and do not want to take any action, such prema is very superficial. Because creation requires Srishti, Lord Brahma, creation requires Titi, Lord Vishnu, and creation requires Samhara, that is Lord Shiva. And fortunately, both Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma does not get into the maintenance part and the destruction part. Therefore, there are no weapons in his hand. But Lord Krishna, Lord Narayan, and Lord Shiva, as much they are peaceful, very peaceful. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it is explained, one of the most amazing sight on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is when Krishna, along with Arjuna, they came out of the battlefield, millions of bodies are lying on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but they are maneuvering their horses, their chariot through without getting disturbed. They are not hard-hearted. They are not desensitized. They are not celebrating the death of others. But that was the only way it could bring peace formula. Similarly, that great Lord Shiva doesn't interfere. Right? He is not involved in doing all kinds of nonsensical talk. But when his time comes, whether it is Mahapralaya or it is a small pralaya, whether that pralaya exhibited by Shivaji Maharaj, right, destroying the Mughal and the Adil Shah, springing in Pune and destroying the fingers of Shaiste Khan, or killing Afzal Khan, this story should be heard, narrated, and experience the spirit of retaliating for the right reason. This is my personal observation. Those who play peace card all the time, when something goes wrong to them, they are the one who play always greatest victim card. सबसे पहले कोर्ट रूम को वो लोग चढ़ जाते हैं. And for what? For simply something most ordinariness. Right? They have no connection to what is happening to the surrounding world. They don't want to be distracted by the surrounding world. But something happens to their own family, they lose their faith also completely. How this could happen? Disease, death, old age, right? Accidents. These are all part of Rudra Shakti only. If you want to grow in this world, you want to contribute in this world, you want to be ambitious in this world, you will also experience shunya. Right? Emptiness. खत्म, जिसको बोलते हैं ना खत्म हो गया, नष्ट हो गया. जो नष्ट सहन करने की क्षमता रखता है वही कष्ट करके प्रॉफिट भी कर सकता है. And therefore Rudra Shakti is one of the most fascinating concept, as Krishna is fascinating, right? Lord Krishna, if you see, the Madhurya in Vrindavan and all kinds of strategy in Kurukshetra, to the extent where he is asking Arjuna to speak lie, or to Yudhishthira Maharaj to speak lie to his own martial teacher. He was not a spiritual master. Dronacharya is not a spiritual master, but in those times, whether you are teacher of mathematics or you are spiritual master, the gaurav, respect was similar. Right? They did not distinguish between, they knew the difference between the martial teacher and the spiritual master. But in regards to respect, they did not distinguish. Very interesting principle. And that very Dronacharya was told by Yudhishthira Maharaj, your son is dead. Krishna requested, advised, and made him take responsibility for the lie. And that lie became Rudra Shakti. So whenever you see anything which is destroyed for the right reason, that is the right Rudra Shakti which creates auspiciousness. And anything which is destroyed, which creates inauspiciousness, that is also Rudra, but that Rudra is not the Rudra we are looking for. The Rudra what Bhagavad Gita is speaking, the Rudra what Mahabharata is speaking, the Rudra what Ramayana is speaking, that Rudra is the Rudra which gives rise to Prakriti, that gives rise to maintenance. And therefore Lord Shiva is very fascinating. Lord Shiva basically has the power to reconcile all kinds of contradiction. Right? We see Lord Shiva's Ardhanarishwar form. Another fascinating concept, because Ardha part of his body is full of Shringar in the form of his Shakti. And half of his form is completely almost just other than his scorpion and Charma Mruga, there are nothing. ये कौन सा श्रृंगार है? It's a combination of smashan and shringar. It's a combination of vairagya and limitless interaction with Prakriti. क्योंकि सत्य जीवन का सत्य, this is the reality of life. They are not contradictory. It's a beautiful concept. And therefore, whether it is peace and war, whether it is smashan or shringar, whether it is anger or karuna, our great rishis did not see conflict if you are a yogi. And because Lord Shiva is a yogi, Lord Shiva is the greatest yajna doer. For him, whether it is a destruction or sitting in the Himalayan mountain performing meditation, there is absolutely no contradiction, because he is the most amazing person in regards to having a concept of applying rules at the right place for the right reason at the right time. Where to apply samhara and where to apply peace. And therefore, on this wonderful auspicious occasion, it's a Shivaratri. In one sense, the marriage of Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati. But it is a Rudra also, because Lord Shiva is Rudra. So therefore, those who truly believe, truly believe that there has to be, we are not saying that the material world will be heavenly planets, but it is the world of God. Lord Brahmaji created, Lord Vishnu maintains it, Lord Shiva destroys it at the right time. When Lord Shiva is supposed to destroy, how can we, a greedy human beings with a demonic forces, using people, destroy it recklessly and cause so much of pain? Then the good people, right, like just like the Pandavas on the battlefield, invoked Har Har Mahadev. As much as you are the greatest of the evil forces, you can imagine for killing Jayadratha and Karna, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna went to Shivaloka. Arjuna received the Pashupat Astra once again from Lord Shiva, like reconfirming that weapon, taking blessings of Lord Shiva, because Jitna evil forces is much greater, then the Rudra Shakti has to be more powerful. Right? And Arjuna used those weapons. And we'll conclude today, therefore, everybody, as much as possible, make your frustration into directed anger. Along with your Omkar, you make it to Humkar. One of the name of Lord Shiva is called as Manyu. In the Vedas, there is Manyu Suktaha. One nice priest was telling me, Bhima, before killing Dushasan, he invoked this Manyu Sukta. You may not know it. I also don't know about it, but I've heard about it. Manyu basically means Rudra only. And by invoking that Manyu Sukta, Bhima basically invoked Rudra Shakti. As much as you take pleasure in hearing the stories of Bhima eating all kinds of laddu, naughty pastime, once in a while it is important that you also read the destruction of Kichak and Dushasan. Now, what it takes to destroy the evil forces. Therefore, today, as you are celebrating Shivratri, also invoke the Rudra Shakti, consciously pray that let there be, we are not taking anybody's name, whoever is involved, even if that is you, me, and anybody, let them be punished by the power of Rudra Shakti, so that we can constantly, forever experience the Shiva, the most auspicious Shiva Shakti, who is always performing most wonderful pastimes, including narrating the great literature of Srimad Bhagavatam or any other literature to Mother Parvati. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. That was a very fascinating narrative of how we need to integrate peace and war, Shamshan and Shringar, anger and Karuna, Vairagya and Shringar, and appropriately using the right tools. I'd like to invite questions at this point in time. You can raise your hand or you could put your question in the chat box. In the meanwhile, Prabhuji, within us also we experience war, and there are these evil thoughts and intentions. How can we use Rudra Shakti to combat these evil intentions in us?
Yes. Basically, again, the evil intentions, there is the difference between limitation and evil intentions. If you have an evil intention, then Rudra Shakti will come and hit you hard. But if you have a limitation, then you invoke the, there is anartha, which is our limitation. It is only causing harm to us, right? So therefore, that requires purification. That requires Shuddhikaran. And Shuddhikaran does not require violence. That is called as anartha, which will hamper our spiritual progress. But adharma is much dangerous to the existence of human civilization. Adharmic people are not necessarily less in sadhana. Nobody can beat the perfect sadhana of Hiranyakashipu. Nobody can beat perfect sadhana of Ravan. Ravan, the Shiva Tandav Stotra, can anybody ever compile that kind of stotra? Even though Ravan is the evil forces, even the devotees of Lord Ram chant that Shiva Tandav Stotra. So therefore, evil intention or limitation. Limitation does not require any physical punishment. Evil intention requires a medicine. If somebody comes and tells I'm diseased, the doctor doesn't kill him. Oh, you rascal, you are evil intended person, I will kill you. He becomes kind and compassionate to him. So let us understand the distinction between adharmic and limited with our laziness because of some kind of greed, some kind of lethargy, some kind of, less enthusiasm. So that needs purification. So let us not overlap each other. Evil intention is that very clear at any cost. Like some politician to divide, that's a destructive statement. No, what is that? India is a union of states. Very, very dangerous statement. Right? They are spreading certain values. They're wanting to create every state into separate country. धीरे धीरे से आता है. It is not the Tamil people want, but there are few people who happen to be Tamil, but they're Rakshasi Vrittis. So use the Tamil card to say that, better we should have a different country only. So why would the Western world facilitate that? Again, simple. If there is a one prime minister from Andhra Pradesh, one prime minister from Tamil Nadu, then they will buy weapons. If India was Akhanda Bharat, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Bharat, Nepal, and Brahmadesh, you can imagine the kind of weapons would be reduced. Can you imagine how much weapons should be reduced? So they want the business of, when there is a fear about, if there are 50 countries within one country, you can imagine how much anxiety, tension would be there. Like in the school and colleges, the whole modern education system does not define your capacity to become a medical doctor, but rather sees the grade from one person to another person. That does not define your qualification. Your qualification is defined based upon your ability to handle that rigor, training, and education. But if it is based on the grade, somebody gets 98%, he gets the medical seat, and somebody gets 97%, he or she does not get the medical seat. So what happened? One who got it, he thrived based upon fear only. I might not get. And when he gets or she gets, there is a surcharge of emotions which are very dangerous. It's a artificial celebration. And those who did not get, they go into great suffering, anger, frustration, depression. right? So this kind of value system has to be destroyed. So therefore, do not ever compare the anarthas to adharma. Adharma requires Rudra Shakti, anarthas requires the grace of Shiva, grace of Vishnu, grace of Narayan, grace of Lord Chaitanya.
Thank you very much, Proji. Well understood. Uh, we have a question from a devotee. I'm not able to get his name, but his name is appears as Galaxy on Next. So can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sorry, Prabhuji, for the name change. I was not able to. My name is Harsh. Prabhuji, there were so many things discussed with in this class. So I was just curious on this concept of doing violence in the name of self-protection, because there is one principle which is like Haridas Thakur, let the other person violate me. I am dependent on God, and that becomes a community principle sometimes. And there is another time is like if we don't stand up, we will be wiped off, and we have to fight for the future. So how do we integrate these two responses when there is a what we say, a fear of threat, something of that sort? Thank you, Ma'am.
Very simple. Haridas Thakur has nothing to lose other than his own soul. He had no house, he has no property to protect. He was not a soldier, he was not an administrative person. He was purely operating on the soul principle. He could stay with a poisonous snake. So where is the question of retaliation? When you come to that level, then there is no retaliation. But if you are supposed to be running a house, you have a family, you have children, you have a community, and you say, I want to follow Haridas Thakur, then you should be beaten badly. And not you means you. I'm saying anybody uses that principle, they should be beaten because they're using that principle at a wrong place. That is not the greatness what exhibited by Haridas Thakur. Imitation of Haridas Thakur always brings beating. If you know that story, that somebody was imitating Haridas Thakur. So better let us not tell that story. We tell that story to express the greatness of Haridas Thakur. That's it. These principles are an inspirational stories. Rest everybody, there is a system, there is the resources to protect, there is the people to protect, there is a stand you have to take, right? So when we take a stand which is based upon logic, which is based upon reason, which is based upon justice, and also there is a principle of patience. I will be patient for 3 years, chalega. But if your patience is causing your own destruction, then that patience is not fruitful. Therefore, these are all very particular stories, particular situation. Whether I should file a case against my father, should I file a case against my brother? Am I doing out of anger, frustration, limitation, loss of intelligence? That requires not just listening to one lecture, right? We need to contemplate, we need right mentorship, we need right guidance, right? So therefore, then, because every war is very differently battled, the principle of war will be there, but different strategy will be there. The Pandavas tried for peace to such an extent, willing to compromise 5 villages against the entire kingdom. What was there for Duryodhana problem? Not to give that. He denied that also. Then you say, no, forget, he's not giving 5 villages, so let us leave this place. Then you become a cowardice. You make people who are dependent upon you become beggars. Or you may say, okay, in my position, I want 5 villages, but the guy who has got all the kingdom, he has more power than me. Then for you, what is the greatest principle? Let me protect my own life, because if I try to battle, he will kill me. So then the story of Pandavas does not work for you, because Pandavas had the resources to retaliate. So there are so many permutation and combination. Depending upon that, with the right guidance, we have to work. But the story of Haridas Thakur, is only for him to practice
Yeah.
and nobody else.
Yes, Prabhuji, I got the
Can
point
somebody
of.
else take our next question?
Okay,
Harsh
thank you.
Prabhu, we have 7 or 8
Lot of
questions
questions,
lined
yeah.
up, so we'd like to take another question. Can I request Samir ji to please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, yeah.
Prabhuji, what is the significance of today's Jagran?
Jagran, there are certain festival in India during Sharad Purnima also people do Jagran. No, I think it's a planetary position which benefits. So different people are given different explanation. I'll not get into the technical details of it, but overall, generally people during like Janmashtami we do, stay up late night. Sharad Purnima people is to stay up late night. So similarly, Shivratri also many people do stay up late night for receiving, from a devotional perspective, to be conscious of Lord Shiva. From the planetary position, there is certain energy which benefits you. Let us not get into the detail of that. Yeah. Deepak ji, there are questions on the chat box also. Hello?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Vipul Agrawal.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, you mentioned that for our limitations, we need mercy and grace, and for our demoniac tendency, we need punishment. But how can a person himself do something about it? Can a person himself correct his demonic tendency by punishing himself in some way, or is it something which can be done only by others?
No, anything which is any adharma causes violence toward others. It's a criminal act. When it becomes a criminal act, then you require punishment. Like if you have done something wrong and you repent, also, simple example, there is a rapist. He rapes because he's connected with some other bad friend, and he rapes and then he regrets so immensely, but still the law will say he should be given penalty only, he should be given punishment only, because his repentance will cause further impetus for others to feel that I can do and get away with it by being repentful. So therefore, even though you're repenting, the crime is so strong that requires punishment also. If somebody kills somebody else, the best part is they should be given death penalty. Whatever it is, God say, we will not get into the details, right or wrong. Very clear, recorded. He said, I did the criminal act of killing Gandhiji. I need to be given death penalty. Right? We are not discussing, crime is a crime, whether you do it for a right reason or wrong reason. When you take law in your hand, then the law will only punish you. You cannot commit suicide because that becomes complicated. It is death penalty is different from committing suicide. Suicide causes further problem because it is not prayashchitta. So these are two different things.
So, Prabhuji, then how do we reconcile these two opposing concepts of being kind with oneself and punishing oneself?
Now you don't punish yourself. You do sadhana. You do sadhana for your purification, which is causing limitation in your spiritual practices. But if you steal money, if you do an accident, if you kill somebody, then you can repent in front of the law, but the law will be forced to give you punishment. Just like if you travel in a first class train, when you're having a second class ticket, whether you are doing it innocently or consciously, the ticket collector, we are not talking from what they do, being kind, but the law says, no, Baba, I know you are innocent, but still I have to fine you because the crime has been done. Like if you're driving in the American roads, you can give many excuses to the policeman, but generally they give you ticket coolly. This is the ticket. You speeding up, So take this. Right. So therefore, crime invokes justice department, mistake invokes prayashchitta, which is given by shastras. You do this sadhana, you do this, that. There's two different things.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. There's a question from Lakshmikant ji. He asked that, as devotees, some of our family members may not be very favorable towards our devotional practices. They may be very secular in their thinking. Should we pray that Rudra Shakti should punish them?
Depending upon how dangerous secular they are. They're secular, how dangerous it is. If it is too dangerous secular, then we have to call, just like Arjuna had to shoot Bhishma Dev. All depends upon what kind of secular they are. If they are simply secular without proper knowledge, ignorant fools, then forget them. Don't take them seriously. But if they're secular, consciously supporting, breaking India forces, breaking human forces, then whoever it is, they will be cause of destruction of, if not your family, your future generation. So unke prati daya dikhane se, not only everything, just like Duryodhan, Vidura told him, he's not simply a person with mistake, but he has a demonic tendency. He is a personification of pap. He is not papi. A papi ko aap chhod sakte hai. You can release papi, but pap ko chhod nahi sakte. So Vidura had given him certain advice, but Dhritarashtra did not agree, and therefore Dhritarashtra lost his credibility. Dhritarashtra lost Duryodhan. Dhritarashtra lost all of his sons. Dhritarashtra lost all respect from everybody and lost everything. So therefore, if they are simply stupid secular, without having any knowledge, you can try to help them. But if they are conscious secular fighting, like somebody is willing to say whether it is, if that is the truth. He said, I want to be prime minister, whether it is separated Punjab, it doesn't matter, whoever it is, then whether you are from that party or not, when you hear this statement, then you have to pray, oh my God, this is going too much. ये राक्षसी वृत्ति है, अगर वो सत्य है तो. So we are not targeting our energy to a person. We are targeting our energy to such principle. वो principle में जो भी आएगा, whoever is affected by that principle of separatism, wanting to be prime minister of a Punjab, whether it breaks separately or not, it is not about a particular person called as Arvind Kejriwal. If he's truly doing like that, the Rudra Shakti has the power to disintegrate. If it is a false accusation, if it is not true, nothing will happen to him. As simple as that. That's how the Shastras, the intellectual class would work like that. And the Kshatriya class would work to give physical punishment. Right? So these are all finer details.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, sometimes, we need to possibly ask Lakshmikant ji, what does he really mean by secular? Because sometimes as devotees, we do not really consider other gods to be important, and that creates some kind of anger in us and frustration. So I don't know whether he meant that or he meant secular in the other sense.
Secular, let us take different question, because secular is very clear.
Yeah,
nothing to do with God, nothing to do with systems, nothing to do with nationhood, nothing to do with Rashtra. Secular is nothing to do with the Bharatiya thought process.
Sure, thank you.
That's
Maheshji,
nothing to do with the.
Sure. Maheshji, can you please ask your question?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for your time and energy. That's what you spend on giving these lectures. I think you partly answered my question in the previous questions, but I'll still ask. Prabhuji, you mentioned that a Rudra Shakti can be used for both purposes, which is auspicious as well as inauspicious, basically good or bad. but in our day-to-day dealings, when we are in a situation, let's say like this, how do we self-evaluate that my actions can be for a good reason or a bad reason?
So therefore, again, we don't have to analyze so much, because our rishis have given a brilliant system. The 16 samskaras. We are going to do the seminar on that. The 16 samskaras are brilliant. There is a concept of refinement, not simply caused by emotions. Emotions are one thing. Oh, Krishna, please. Oh, God, help me. Those are emotions. But there is just like when you want to make stone into a statue, it is not simply a sentiment which makes stone into a statue. Along with that devotion, there has to be skill also, the art of carving, right? So therefore, there is no need to make too much of analysis about our personal progress, right? It's okay to make certain, when you're walking, if you falter while walking, no need to analyze about it. Why did I make a wrong step? If you are bringing a bell, if a bell falls from your hand, no need to make so much of analysis about that. Pick up the bell. If there is a mantra, forgive, you ask forgiveness and continue your puja. All right. So similarly, when you're doing our sadhana, there is no need to be regretful because of our sadhana. We can refine our sadhana, but there is no need for becoming despondent. Therefore, it is known fact many practitioners of spirituality, because of too much of analysis of self, condemnation, the self condemnation remains with them, and their sadhana goes away to the extent where they lose their identity only. It's one of the biggest psychological issue also, if you study those spiritual practitioners. So it's important that we don't get into a zone of guilt, wholesale guilt, or on the other hand, shamelessness.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. There is a question by Dhananjay ji, who's asked that what is the difference between being consciously cruel and being accidentally cruel?
He was a warrior, fought. He has been a warrior for, we know each other since many years. We will invite one day for him to speak about he's a Gita teacher also. He was a soldier and then taught education. He's in his retirement time, he's teaching Gita also. So he can answer, because I heard very interestingly recently, Shivaji Maharaj is a great warrior. And people only see, he's wielding the sword, riding on the horses. In his entire career as a great Maratha king, Maratha means not the typical Maratha, which is only Maratha caste, which has become like that now. Maratha is a spirit, right? So he only killed 4 people in his entire career. Only 4 people as a greatest warrior, right? So therefore a true soldier, an Indian soldier, the spirit of an Indian soldier is to minimize the damage, because they know that other side also has a family. Therefore, their cruelty is caused by no other choice. But when the cruelty becomes conscious, when we take pleasure in harming others, then it is becoming a conscious cruelty perversion. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, after killing the entire Kuru Sainya, Lord Krishna had the courage to come to Dhritarashtra to beg forgiveness. Not beg forgiveness for killing and feeling regret, I should have not done it. They knew there was no other choice than to do it. But even while doing that, they did not take pleasure. So therefore, a real soldier is a reluctant. Therefore, he has the element of Rajarshi. He's a Raja externally, but founded on the Rishi principle. Therefore, The difference between a terrorist and the soldier, you never find a terrorist organization doing a human welfare activities, social services. Have you ever seen any Islamic terrorist organization does humanitarian work? No, they're raw, cruel, cowardice people, brutal. Wherever you find them, shoot them. If you're a police officer or a soldier, right? But a soldier has a harmony between the refined feminine and masculine energy. He can kill, but that is not his main, goal of life. The main goal of life is to see the protection is given. So therefore, conscious cruelty is basically creating a system of killing people, and unconscious cruelty is accidental, sometime out of anger, which comes because you see hundreds of people are being killed. In that frustration, you may shoot few people. How can they do like this? Right? That is also not a conscious, even though that's a wrong, it's not a conscious cruelty, because you have seen so much of death happening for innocent people, so you lose your temper. I hope that helps. Next question.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Request Krishna Sundar Prabhuji to please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have this question that whenever a adharma is done to us or to our family members, there is one way of doing it, that is giving a complaint or going by law, which is not so much satisfying as ourselves acting upon it, use our power, our influence, and get the justice done. But that is looked upon by others or by system as ourselves conducting violence, which is not even satisfying.
Very good question. Yes. That's a unfortunate reality of the modern world. Before the Britishers came to this land, it's a very interesting that people had the facility to defend themselves because they had the discretion of where to strike, where not to strike. Just like in Ayurveda, again, those who are practicing pure spirituality, in Ayurveda, Vagbhatta, who is self-controlled sage, he says when to enjoy, including drinking wine. So if you study what he says, you will feel it is better to not to drink for the rest of your life only. Why? Because he gives few days during the very, very strong winter. What kind of winter? There you can drink what kind of wine. But generally people become addict. So better not to drink only. So similarly, the people were men of wisdom, women of wisdom. They knew how to punish and not go beyond that. Again, giving the example of Shivaji Maharaj. He had all the weapons. He could have killed hundreds of people who are basically not standing by him when he got under his control. But only 4 people. That shows how much self-restraint is required to punish others. But because somewhere at some point of time, things became so disruptive, then the system was created to punish the culprit. And sometime or often the system itself becomes culprit. Right? It takes such a long time. I remember one time one of our friend got an accident. He was bumped by a tempo, and the legal department, the police department was asking him, harsh question. How do you know that whether you are crossing it wrongly or no?
Yeah, yes.
All those questions were quite now, because again, I don't blame them, because many people use this thing gain certain benefits, right? So therefore, the self-rule, what Shastra speaks about, the power to punish aggressor in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains about aggressors. Attacking the aggressor is not a crime, self-defense, right? So it's a very complex situation. So therefore, best is to follow, so that, again, it's like if you punish, then you become legally criminal. Then you cause so much of harm to your family, your immediate. You get satisfaction, but they are in great dilemma and trouble and challenges. Therefore, however, it is difficult one. Two things I would say: follow the legal system and invoke the Rudra Shakti systematically.
Okay.
Yeah? That will
Thank you
give
very
you
much.
some satisfaction.
Thank you very much, Proji. Proji, can we take a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Prathameshi, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the wonderful explanation. So, Prabhuji, being Vaishnavas, by nature, we are, we pray for the shelter of Sri Narsimhadev in any difficult situation. So, just want to understand the difference between the Rudra Shakti and Narsimhadev Tattva. Is it same Shakti or
It's the same. Read in the Bhagavatam. When the Devatas were praying to Lord Narsingadev, Kopakala Yugante, they offered that prayer to Lord Narsingadev, that the anger what you are exhibiting is exhibited during the Pralay. Kopakala Yugante. So that Kopakala is nothing that Rudra Shakti was. It's a principle, not only the deity alone. Whoever exhibit that, whether it is Parshuram exhibited that, whether Krishna exhibited that punishing Ashwathama, that is Rudra Shakti.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Thank you very much. Rishabh, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Sorry, just a minute. Yeah.
You can take from here, no?
Yeah, he had put his question in the chat box, so I asked him to ask the question personally. Yeah, Rishabh, can you please ask your question?
Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
प्रभु जी, पिछली बार जब मैंने आपका शिवाजी महाराज का लेक्चर देखा था, तो वो मैं अपने एक मित्र के साथ डिस्कस कर रहा था, तो उसने कुछ ऐसा प्रश्न पूछा जिसका उत्तर मेरे लिए जानना जरूरी है। उसने कहा कि आप मान लीजिए कि आप ब्रिटिशर्स से लड़ रहे हैं और भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर जो कि ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट में जज का काम करते हैं, वो आपके विरुद्ध हैं, तो आप क्या करेंगे?
तो आप क्या करोगे, बताओ आप ही।
प्रभु जी, मैं अगर जानता तो ये पूछता नहीं, इसीलिए मैंने पूछना उचित।
See, Bhishmadev was on the side of Kauravas, right? But
Yes.
his devotion was never questioned by Krishna. Bhagwan had such a deep affection for Bhishmadev, he went privately to bless him. Okay?
Yes.
He privately to bless him. So, आपकी श्रद्धा अगर कोई, let us not take specifically name of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he is a very advanced soul, but
Yes.
something like that happens, that
Yes.
there are men of great integrity, powerful devotion. At the same time, consciously, unconsciously, they are standing on the side of the British government.
Yes.
So what will you do? You will respect them. No freedom fighter ever killed a judge, because they only killed those people who are directly involved in attacking the citizen, whether it is police department, whether it is the general dyer, right? So ये भी देखना चाहिए प्रश्न में, when we form question also, it should be sensitive.
Okay.
Yeah. So therefore, yes, the principle is simple. With Bhishmadev, we can understand very clearly. If Bhishmadev can be stopped, then anybody can be stopped. But that does not mean that their credibility, their credentials, millions of people, when they work for the British government, not everybody had an agenda to support the Britishers.
Yes.
Because it was a situation where they had to deal with their अपने पेट पूजा करना पड़ रहा था.
Yes.
Today also, there are hundreds and thousands of people, they work for a multinational company which is totally anti-India forces. Are we going to kill them?
No.
Saying, "Arey, you are working." So therefore, enlighten them. Tell them don't have any emotional affection to that working place. अपना
Yes.
काम करो, अपना पैसा ले लो, उनके प्रति निष्ठा की आवश्यकता नहीं है, कॉम्पिटेंस की आवश्यकता है बस.
Okay.
Right? So there is no emotional connect. Emotional connect will always happen to your family, your village, your rashtra, and your spiritual practices.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Amrita Keli Mataji, can you please unmute yourself and ask a question?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी.
हरे
प्रभु
कृष्णा.
जी, आपने समझाया कि हमें रुद्र शक्ति का आह्वान करना चाहिए. उसकी टेक्निक क्या है?
रुद्र शक्ति जो आप गुस्सा करते हो उसको we discussed that it should not be frustrating, rather directing, where when you are praying, there are, you chant any in the Bhagavatam, there are mantras, as I said, Manyu Sukta. Manyu Sukta is the mantra which is connected to Rudra Shakti only, to invoke for the protection of the dharmic people and the destruction of the adharmic people. ऐसे बहुत सारे नरसिंह स्तुति है जो इन द नरसिंह कवच में आता है, ऐसे अलग अलग जगह में आती है. मंत्रों के द्वारा अपने क्रोध को केंद्रित करने से उसका लाभ धर्म के लिए होगा एंड अधर्म का नाश होगा.
ओके, तो ये प्रेयर्स पढ़नी चाहिए बेसिकली.
यस, एंड स्पेशली टुडे.
ओके ओके, थैंक यू प्रभु जी.
हम तो करने वाले आज रात को.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, last question from Dr. Nitin Sharma. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I'm audible?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, I'm just asking that for study as we are the Vaishnava tradition followers, so for studying and understanding the Shiva concept more, which books and which things we can read?
It is there in the Bhagavatam, is there in the Mahabharata, is there Shiva Tattva, and there is again in regards to this tattvas, Shiva Tattva or Brahma Tattva or Vishnu Tattva, they have nothing to do with Shaiva or Vaishnava. It's a principle. ये सिद्धांत केंद्रित है, ये अपने श्रद्धा से कोई इसका लेना देना नहीं है.
Okay.
Your Shraddha, you worship Lord Vishnu, or somebody is Shaiva, they worship Lord Shiva. But the principle of Rudra, Vishnu and Brahma ji, Srishti, Sthiti और प्रलय, ये तो universal foundational principle है सनातन धर्म का. So wherever you find that Rudra Shakti, wherever you read, आपको मिलेगा.
Shiv Mahapuran and Shiv Sutras can be read?
उसमें again, then you should not be confused about when they talk about supremacy of Lord Shiva.
Yes.
You are not going there to discuss about supremacy. You are going to go there only to study Shiva Tattva.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
And Prabhuji, especially in the North India, there is a misconception that females cannot touch the Shivling. So it is good, as per Shastra, or what should be done? Simply pouring the water of the Shivlinga. Some say that they can worship and pour the water, and some say that females cannot touch. So what is the proper understanding?
मतलब अगर logically देखा जाए, if you see the logic perspective, the Shiva Linga is nothing but Shiva Shakti together in the symbolizing the power of procreation. सृष्टि को बनाने के लिए शिव शक्ति का समन्वय हो रहा है, तो इसलिए, and a woman is also part of that tattva only. So why in the world would somebody say that? If there is any tantra के दृष्टिकोण से, which I don't know, if there is any tantra में एनर्जी के बहुत सारे possibilities होते हैं, which I don't know about. From the Vedic tradition perspective, from the Bhakti tradition perspective, from the yoga tradition perspective, why she, other than during her period, is not allowed to touch Shivalinga as much as you and me can touch. Doesn't make any sense.
Yes, thank you. Generally, they touch only in the North India, but I have heard from somewhere that they should not touch. So I want to clarify. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this lovely conversation. Deeply enhances our respect and appreciation of the teachings of Lord Shiva and how we can integrate them in our life. We will meet again on Tuesday next, which is Women's Day, to discuss how a woman can integrate her career and family life together. Thank you very much, and Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Please offer Rudra Shakti tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.